Ladies and gentlemen, trust is one of the most misunderstood principles in human life. Many believe trust means waiting passively, doing nothing, or ignoring reality. In truth, trust is an active inner state. It is the calm confidence that life is guided by an intelligence greater than individual understanding. When a person truly trusts God, their inner resistance dissolves and clarity replaces confusion. Trust, when examined deeply, is not a vague emotional feeling or a passive spiritual idea. It is a conscious inner choice that shapes how a person interprets life, responds to events, and makes decisions. To trust God is to deliberately place confidence in a higher intelligence that operates beyond immediate appearances. This choice is not automatic. It is developed through awareness, understanding, and repeated inner discipline. Every moment presents a decision: to react from fear or to respond from trust. The keynote emphasizes that trust is an active mental posture, not an escape from responsibility. Most people believe trust begins after circumstances improve. In reality, trust is meant to precede improvement. When individuals wait for proof before trusting, they place their peace at the mercy of external conditions. This creates instability because external conditions are always changing. Conscious trust reverses this pattern. It establishes inner stability first, allowing outer situations to reorganize naturally. This is why trust must be understood as an inner decision, rather than a reaction to events. The mind constantly seeks certainty. It wants guarantees, timelines, and visible progress. However, life does not operate according to the mind's demand for immediate clarity. Trust steps in where certainty ends. It does not deny logic or planning. Instead, it prevents logic from turning into obsession. When trust is consciously chosen, the mind remains engaged but not overwhelmed. It plans without panic and evaluates without fear. Choosing trust requires awareness of internal dialogue. Much of human suffering originates not from events themselves, but from the meanings assigned to them. When a delay is interpreted as failure, anxiety increases. When uncertainty is labeled as danger, fear dominates behavior. Trust changes interpretation. The same delay becomes preparation. The same uncertainty becomes space for guidance. This shift does not happen automatically. It happens through deliberate inner alignment. Trust also requires letting go of the illusion of total control. Control feels safe, but it is often rooted in fear. The need to control every outcome suggests a belief that life cannot function without constant interference. Trust challenges this belief. It reminds the individual that intelligence operates beyond conscious effort. Just as the body heals itself without instruction, life organizes itself when not resisted. Conscious trust allows this organization to occur. It is important to clarify that trust does not mean ignoring problems or avoiding action. On the contrary, trust refines action. When fear-driven control dominates, actions are rushed, defensive, and reactive. When trust leads, actions are measured, intentional, and aligned. The difference is subtle but powerful. Trust does not eliminate effort, it eliminates wasted effort. Many people struggle with trust because they associate it with vulnerability. They believe that trusting means risking disappointment. However, distrust does not protect from disappointment, it only guarantees tension. Conscious trust accepts uncertainty while maintaining inner peace. It acknowledges that outcomes may not unfold exactly as imagined, yet it remains confident that they will unfold meaningfully. Trust also strengthens emotional regulation. When trust is absent, emotions swing rapidly based on circumstances. Small setbacks cause large emotional reactions. When trust is present, emotions stabilize. This stability does not mean emotional numbness, it means emotional balance. Balanced emotions allow clearer thinking, better communication, and wiser decisions. Another crucial aspect of trust as a conscious choice is patience. Patience is often misunderstood as waiting without action. In reality, patience is acting without anxiety. Trust activates patience because it removes the urgency created by fear. When urgency fades, timing improves. Decisions are made when clarity is present rather than when pressure demands movement. Trust also reshapes self-perception. Without trust, individuals often blame themselves excessively for outcomes beyond their control. They internalize failure and personalize delay. Conscious trust introduces compassion into self-assessment. It allows individuals to recognize effort without attaching worth solely to results. This self-compassion is essential for sustained growth. From an educational perspective, trust functions as a cognitive framework. It influences attention, memory, and judgment. A trusting mind notices opportunities rather than threats. It recalls past successes rather than dwelling on past mistakes. It judges situations with perspective rather than emotion. Over time, this framework becomes habitual, shaping personality and behavior. Trust must also be practiced consistently. It is not a one-time declaration, but a daily discipline. Each moment of uncertainty invites either trust or fear. Each challenge tests internal alignment. With practice, trust becomes automatic. The mind learns that panic is unnecessary and resistance is unproductive. Trust does not eliminate discomfort. Growth often involves discomfort. However, trust changes the relationship with discomfort. Instead of resisting it, the individual understands it as temporary and purposeful. This understanding prevents discouragement and supports perseverance. When trust becomes the dominant inner choice, life begins to feel cooperative rather than adversarial. Events no longer appear as constant battles, but as movements within a larger process. This perspective reduces stress and increases resilience. Resilience is not toughness. It is flexibility rooted in faith. Trust as a conscious inner choice restores balance between effort and surrender. Too much effort leads to exhaustion. Too much surrender leads to passivity. Trust integrates both. It encourages action while allowing outcomes to unfold naturally. This balance is where clarity, peace, and progress coexist. Trusting God is not an emotional impulse or a last resort. It is an intentional mental alignment, chosen repeatedly in moments of uncertainty. It is the decision to respond rather than react, to allow rather than resist, and to believe in order even when chaos appears. When trust is chosen consciously, it reshapes perception, stabilizes emotion, and guides action. Through this inner shift, life gradually reflects harmony, proving that trust was not misplaced but perfectly timed. Alignment between inner belief and outer experience is a principle that governs how individuals perceive reality and interact with life. Every experience begins internally, shaped by thoughts, assumptions, emotional patterns, and expectations that operate often without conscious awareness. When these inner elements are coherent and rooted in faith rather than fear, life begins to mirror that coherence externally. This keynote emphasizes that what appears in the outer world is not random but reflects the dominant inner state maintained over time. Many people attempt to change their circumstances without addressing their inner alignment. They focus on external strategies, surface-level behavior, or forced positivity, yet experience repeated frustration. This happens because action taken from misaligned belief produces conflicting energy. For example, a person may work diligently toward a goal while internally expecting failure. This internal contradiction creates hesitation, self-sabotage, and emotional exhaustion. Alignment resolves this conflict by unifying intention, belief, and emotion. Belief functions as an internal blueprint. It defines what feels possible, acceptable, or likely. When belief is rooted in fear, the mind scans for evidence to confirm limitation. When belief is rooted in trust, the mind becomes receptive to opportunity. This shift does not require denial of reality. It requires reinterpretation of reality. Events remain the same, but their meaning changes, and meaning determines response. Outer experience often lags behind inner change. This delay causes many to abandon alignment prematurely. They expect immediate confirmation, and when it does not appear, revert to doubt. Understanding this delay is essential. Just as learning takes time to demonstrate mastery, inner alignment requires persistence before it becomes visible externally. Faith during this interval stabilizes belief and prevents regression. Emotions serve as indicators of alignment. Persistent anxiety, frustration, or resentment often signal internal contradiction. These emotions are not flaws, but feedback. They indicate that thoughts and expectations are out of harmony with trust. When alignment improves, emotional tone shifts naturally. Calm replaces urgency, and clarity replaces confusion. This emotional shift precedes visible change. Alignment also influences behavior subtly. When belief and expectation are unified, actions become consistent and confident. There is less overthinking and less second-guessing. Decisions are made from clarity rather than pressure. This consistency builds momentum, making progress appear effortless from the outside, even though it is internally disciplined. Another critical aspect of alignment is language. The words individuals use internally and externally reinforce belief. Repeated expressions of doubt strengthen misalignment, while language grounded in trust reinforces coherence. This does not mean ignoring challenges, but speaking about them with perspective rather than despair. Language shapes thought, and thought shapes experience. Life challenges often test alignment deliberately. When circumstances contradict belief, the individual must decide whether to trust internal understanding or external appearances. This choice determines whether alignment deepens or fractures. Maintaining alignment during difficulty strengthens it, much like resistance strengthens muscle. Over time, this practice builds confidence in inner guidance. Alignment does not mean rigid thinking. Flexibility is essential. Sometimes alignment requires releasing outdated beliefs rather than defending them. Growth involves updating assumptions as understanding expands. Trust allows this flexibility because it removes fear of change. When fear is absent, adaptation becomes natural. Relationships also reflect alignment. When inner belief is rooted in worth and trust, interactions become healthier. Boundaries are clearer, communication improves, and dependency decreases. Outer harmony in relationships often mirrors inner emotional balance. From an educational standpoint, alignment can be understood as cognitive congruence. When beliefs, values, and actions support each other, mental stress decreases. This reduction in stress improves focus, memory, and problem solving. Thus, alignment is not only spiritual but practical, influencing performance and well-being. Sustained alignment produces recognizable patterns. Opportunities appear at appropriate times, resources become accessible, and solutions emerge unexpectedly. These outcomes are not accidents, but results of consistent internal coherence. When resistance is removed, life flows more smoothly. Misalignment, by contrast, fragments attention and energy. The individual feels pulled in opposing directions, unsure whether to trust intuition or fear. This fragmentation slows progress and increases fatigue. Alignment restores unity, allowing energy to be directed efficiently. Importantly, alignment is not about perfection. Temporary doubt does not destroy alignment. Unconscious persistence of doubt does. Awareness is key. By noticing misalignment early, adjustments can be made before it solidifies into habit. Alignment between inner belief and outer experience is a process rather than a destination. It requires observation, patience, and trust. Each adjustment strengthens the connection between internal state and external outcome. When belief, emotion, and expectation are aligned with trust, life responds with order. The outer world becomes a reflection of inner coherence. This principle demonstrates that change does not begin with circumstances, but with consciousness. When alignment is maintained, experience follows, proving that harmony within naturally expresses itself without letting go of control is one of the most difficult yet transformative inner shifts a person can make. Control is often mistaken for responsibility, strength, or wisdom, but in many cases it is rooted in fear. The fear of uncertainty, loss, or disappointment. The desire to control every detail of life arises from the belief that safety exists only when outcomes are predicted and managed. This keynote emphasizes that true order does not come from excessive control, but from surrendering the I, illusion that everything must be personally managed. Human intelligence is limited by perspective. It can analyze, plan, and anticipate to a certain degree, but it cannot account for all variables. When individuals attempt to control outcomes beyond their capacity, mental strain increases. Anxiety, overthinking, and emotional exhaustion follow. Letting go of control does not mean abandoning logic or planning. It means recognizing the boundary between what can be influenced and what must be allowed. This recognition restores balance. Control creates resistance because it attempts to force reality into predefined expectations. Life, however, unfolds dynamically. When rigid expectations are imposed, any deviation feels like failure. Surrender softens this rigidity. It allows events to unfold without constant internal opposition. When resistance decreases, clarity increases, and solutions emerge more naturally. Many people fear surrender because they associate it with passivity or weakness. In truth, surrender is an act of courage. It requires trust in a higher order and confidence in one's ability to adapt. Passive resignation is different from conscious surrender. Passive resignation gives up effort. Conscious surrender releases obsession with outcomes while maintaining responsible action. One of the clearest indicators of excessive control is mental noise. The mind replays scenarios, imagines worst outcomes, and attempts to predict every possibility. This constant mental activity drains energy and reduces effectiveness. When control is released, mental space opens. This space allows intuition, insight, and creativity to function. Many breakthroughs occur not during intense effort, but during moments of relaxed awareness. Letting go of control also improves emotional regulation. When control dominates, emotions are tied tightly to outcomes. Success brings relief, delay brings frustration, uncertainty brings fear. Surrender loosens this attachment. Emotions become less reactive because self-worth and peace are no longer dependent on external results. This emotional freedom is a form of stability that cannot be achieved through control. Another important aspect of surrender is timing. Many difficulties arise not because action is wrong, but because it is forced at the wrong time. Control pushes action prematurely. Trust waits for clarity. This does not mean waiting indefinitely. It means acting when alignment is present. Proper timing often makes difficult tasks easier and complex situations simpler. Letting go of control also changes how challenges are perceived. Instead of seeing obstacles as threats, they are seen as redirections. This shift reduces resistance and increases adaptability. When adaptability increases, outcomes improve even if original plans change. Flexibility becomes a strength rather than a compromise. From an educational perspective, surrender can be understood as systems thinking. In complex systems, forcing one element often disrupts the whole. Allowing systems to self-organize produces better outcomes. Life operates similarly. When individuals stop interfering unnecessarily, natural order emerges. This order is not chaotic. It is intelligent and responsive. Surrender also strengthens trust. Each time control is released and life responds positively, confidence in the process increases. This confidence makes future surrender easier. Over time, surrender becomes a habit rather than a struggle. The mind learns that letting go does not result in collapse, but in coherence. It is important to note that surrender does not eliminate effort. It refines it. Effort guided by trust is efficient and purposeful. Effort driven by control is frantic and exhausting. The difference lies not in the amount of action, but in the quality. Thank you of intention behind it. Letting go of control also improves relationships. Control often appears as manipulation, expectation, or emotional pressure. Surrender allows others to be themselves without constant interference. This creates healthier boundaries and more authentic connections. When control is removed, respect and understanding increase. Dimension of surrender is acceptance of uncertainty. Uncertainty is unavoidable, yet control tries to eliminate it. Acceptance acknowledges uncertainty without fear. This acceptance reduces stress and increases resilience. A resilient mind adapts rather than resists. Surrender transforms identity. Individuals stop defining themselves by outcomes and begin defining themselves by alignment and integrity. This shift reduces fear of failure and increases willingness to learn. Learning accelerates when fear decreases. Letting go of control also restores presence. When the mind is no longer preoccupied with future outcomes, attention returns to the present moment. Presence improves performance because focus is undivided. Many errors occur not from lack of skill, but from divided attention caused by control-driven anxiety. Surrender allows higher intelligence to organize events more effectively than personal effort alone. This does not remove responsibility. It places responsibility in proper proportion. Individuals become participants rather than enforcers in the flow of life. Letting go of control is not a loss of power, but a return to balance. It removes resistance, reduces anxiety, and allows order to emerge naturally. When control is surrendered consciously, life responds with coherence. What once felt forced begins to unfold with ease. Through surrender, trust deepens, and through trust, life arranges itself in ways that control could never achieve. Faith functions as a stabilizing force in the human mind, especially during periods of uncertainty. When circumstances are unclear or outcomes are delayed, the natural tendency of the mind is to fill the gap with fear-based assumptions. This keynote explains that faith does not remove uncertainty, but it transforms how uncertainty is experienced. Instead of triggering panic or impulsive action, faith activates patience and mental clarity, allowing individuals to navigate complexity with composure. Patience is often misunderstood as inactivity or resignation. In reality, patience is an active mental discipline. It is the ability to remain steady without forcing outcomes prematurely. Faith supports this discipline by assuring the mind that progress is occurring even when it is not immediately visible. This assurance prevents emotional overreaction and preserves energy for meaningful action. Without faith, uncertainty feels threatening. The mind demands immediate answers and becomes uncomfortable with ambiguity. This discomfort often leads to rushed decisions that create additional problems. Faith reframes uncertainty as a natural part of growth. When uncertainty is accepted rather than resisted, clarity emerges organically. Decisions made from this clarity are more accurate and less emotionally charged. Faith also improves attention. A mind consumed by worry struggles to focus because attention is fragmented by imagined threats. When faith is present, attention becomes centered. This centering allows individuals to observe details, recognize patterns, and respond thoughtfully. Clarity is not sudden insight. It is sustained awareness made possible by calm attention. Another essential role of faith is emotional regulation. When faith is absent, emotions fluctuate with external events. Success brings temporary relief. Setbacks cause disproportionate distress. Faith stabilizes emotional response by anchoring it internally rather than externally. This stability does not eliminate emotion, but prevents it from becoming overwhelming. Balanced emotions support rational thinking and effective communication. Faith also protects against burnout. Constant urgency exhausts mental and physical resources. Patience supported by faith introduces rhythm into effort. Work becomes sustainable rather than draining. This rhythm improves long-term performance and prevents the cycle of overexertion followed by discouragement. Clarity often emerges after patience has been exercised. Many insights require time to form. When the mind is pressured, it cannot integrate information effectively. Faith allows time for integration. During this period, subconscious processing occurs, connecting ideas and experiences. The resulting clarity feels effortless because it is well formed rather than forced. Faith also influences perception of time. Impatience magnifies waiting, making delays feel intolerable. Faith compresses perceived time by reducing emotional resistance. When resistance decreases, waiting becomes manageable. This change in perception significantly reduces stress. In educational terms, faith enhances learning. Anxiety inhibits memory and comprehension. Patience creates a receptive mental state. When learners trust the process, they absorb information more effectively. This principle applies beyond formal education to life learning as well. Faith encourages reflective action. Instead of reacting immediately, individuals pause, assess, and choose deliberately. This pause is crucial. It is the space where wisdom replaces impulse. Faith sustains this pause by removing the fear that something will be lost by waiting. Another benefit of faith-driven patience is adaptability. When outcomes do not unfold as expected, a patient mind adjusts rather than collapses. Faith provides the assurance that adjustment is not failure but
refinement.
This mindset supports continuous improvement. Faith also sharpens intuition. When mental noise is reduced, subtle signals become noticeable. These signals guide decisions in ways that logic alone cannot. Intuition is not irrational. It is pattern recognition operating below conscious awareness. Faith creates the quiet environment intuition requires. Faith-based patience builds confidence. Each experience of waiting without negative consequence reinforces trust. This reinforcement creates a positive feedback loop. The individual becomes less reactive and more composed with each challenge. Faith also supports ethical clarity. Under pressure, individuals may compromise values for quick results. Patience allows values to guide decisions even when shortcuts appear tempting. This integrity strengthens self-respect and long-term success. Faith does not guarantee comfort. Discomfort may still arise, but it is no longer overwhelming. Faith contextualizes discomfort as temporary and purposeful. This perspective reduces suffering and supports perseverance. Faith transforms the relationship with uncertainty from adversarial to cooperative. Instead of fighting the unknown, individuals work with it. This cooperation opens possibilities that resistance obscures. Faith activates patience, and patience creates clarity. This sequence is essential. Without patience, clarity is forced and fragile. With patience, clarity is stable and reliable. In conclusion, faith is not merely belief. It is a functional mental resource. It stabilizes emotion, improves attention, and supports wise decision-making. By activating patience, faith allows clarity to emerge naturally. This clarity guides action with precision and calm. Through faith, uncertainty becomes manageable, and through patience, understanding unfolds at the right time. Challenges are often interpreted through the lens of FA, AR, and self-judgment. When difficulty arises, many immediately assume something has gone wrong, that they have failed, or that they are being punished. This keynote invites a deeper, more constructive understanding. Challenges are not signs of abandonment or error, but indicators of preparation, refinement, and transition. Life rarely moves forward without resistance. Just as growth in any system requires pressure to strengthen structure, from an educational standpoint, learning does not occur in comfort. Cognitive development requires effort, repetition, and occasional confusion. In the same way, life challenges stretch perception and capacity. When a person encounters difficulty, it often means they are operating at the edge of their current understanding. This edge is where growth happens. Without challenge, stagnation occurs. Many people internalize challenges as personal flaws. They ask, why is this happening to me, rather than what is this developing in me? This shift in questioning is crucial. When challenges are viewed as punishment, they generate shame and resistance. When viewed as preparation, they generate curiosity and resilience. Preparation implies purpose, and purpose changes emotional response. Challenges often appear just before significant progress. This timing is not accidental. Before a system can reorganize at a higher level, existing structures must be tested. Old beliefs, habits, and assumptions are exposed under pressure. What cannot support the next stage naturally weakens. This process can feel uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Fear intensifies challenge by adding emotional weight. Two people can face the same difficulty with vastly different experiences, depending on interpretation. Fear constricts thinking and narrows options. Trust expands perspective. When challenges are met with trust, problem-solving becomes more effective because the mind is not overwhelmed. Another important aspect is that challenges reveal internal alignment. Under ease, beliefs are untested. Under pressure, true assumptions surface. If a person claims trust but reacts with panic, the challenge has revealed a gap that can now be addressed. In this way, difficulty serves as feedback, not condemnation. Preparation through challenge also builds competence. Skills are developed through application under pressure. Confidence that is not tested remains theoretical. When a challenge is overcome, it leaves behind evidence of capability. This evidence strengthens future trust and reduces fear of new challenges. Challenges also refine priorities. In ease, distractions multiply. In difficulty, what truly matters becomes clear. This clarity simplifies decision-making and strengthens focus. Many individuals discover purpose during adversity because superficial concerns fall away. It is also important to understand that not all challenges are meant to be solved immediately. Some are meant to be endured with awareness. Endurance develops patience, humility, and inner strength. These qualities cannot be rushed. When endurance is misunderstood as weakness, individuals exhaust themselves trying to escape lessons meant to deepen them. From a systems perspective, stress tests reveal structural weaknesses. Similarly, life challenges reveal areas that need strengthening. Emotional regulation, boundaries, discipline, and self-belief are often developed only when challenged. Without stress, these qualities remain undeveloped. Challenges also cultivate empathy. Personal difficulty increases understanding of others' struggles. This empathy improves relationships and communication. It shifts focus from self-centered survival to shared human experience. In this way, challenge expands emotional intelligence. Another key element is timing. Challenges often arise when a person is ready. even if they feel unprepared. Readiness does not mean comfort. It means capacity for growth. The feeling of being overwhelmed often indicates expansion beyond previous limits. Challenges can also dismantle false identities. When external roles or achievements are disrupted, individuals are forced to reconnect with internal values. This reconnection builds authenticity. Authenticity is more stable than image because it does not rely on external validation. Importantly, challenges do not define worth. They define process. When worth is tied to ease, difficulty feels like failure. When worth is intrinsic, difficulty becomes experience rather than identity. This distinction protects mental health and self-respect. Overcoming challenges does not always mean eliminating them. Sometimes it means integrating them. Integration involves learning, adjusting, and continuing with greater awareness. This approach prevents repetition of the same path. Turns. Preparation through challenge also improves discernment. Individuals learn when to persist and when to change direction. This discernment is critical for long-term success. Without challenge, discernment remains undeveloped. Challenges often feel isolating, but they are universal. Understanding this universality reduces shame. It reminds individuals that struggle is not a personal defect, but a shared aspect of growth. As challenges are reinterpreted, resistance decreases. Energy once spent on complaint becomes available for learning. This energy shift accelerates progress. Challenges are not evidence of punishment, but of preparation. They signal that growth is underway and capacity is expanding. When difficulties are met with trust rather than fear, they refine character, clarify purpose, and strengthen resilience. Through challenge, individuals are not broken, they are shaped. What emerges is not weakness, but readiness for what comes next. Consistency of trust is what transforms faith from a temporary response into a stable way of living. Many people turn to trust only during moments of crisis, treating it as a last option when control has failed. While this can bring temporary relief, it does not create lasting stability. This keynote emphasizes that trust must be practiced continuously, not conditionally, in order to produce long-term balance, clarity, and resilience. When trust is applied inconsistently, emotional patterns fluctuate. Calm appears when circumstances are favorable, and anxiety returns when uncertainty arises. This cycle creates dependence on external conditions for inner peace. Consistent trust breaks this dependency. It establishes an internal anchor that remains steady regardless of external change. This steadiness is not emotional numbness. It is emotional maturity. Long-term stability is built through repetition. Just as habits are formed, through repeated behavior, trust becomes reliable through repeated inner alignment. Each time uncertainty is met with trust instead of fear, a new mental pathway is strengthened. Over time, this response becomes automatic. The mind learns that panic is unnecessary and resistance is unproductive. Consistency also deepens understanding. When trust is practiced only occasionally, its benefits appear random. When practiced daily, patterns become visible. Individuals begin to notice how calm thinking leads to better decisions, how patience prevents mistakes, and how clarity emerges without force. These observations reinforce trust, turning belief into knowledge. Another important aspect of consistent trust is identity formation. What a person practices repeatedly becomes part of who they are. When trust is consistent, it shifts from something one does to something one embodies. The individual is no longer trying to trust. They simply respond with trust. This shift significantly reduces inner conflict. Consistent trust also improves decision-making over time. Decisions made from a stable inner state are more coherent and aligned with long-term goals. Impulsive decisions decrease. Regret becomes less frequent because choices are made with clarity rather than urgency. This reliability builds confidence in one's judgment. Long-term stability also depends on how setbacks are handled. Inconsistent trust collapses under difficulty. Consistent trust adapts. Setbacks are not seen as reversals, but as information. This perspective allows learning without discouragement. Learning accumulates, strengthening competence and resilience. Trust practiced consistently also regulates expectations. Unrealistic expectations often create disappointment. Trust does not eliminate expectation, but softens attachment to specific outcomes. This flexibility prevents emotional extremes. Satisfaction Beck. Ohm's more stable because it is not tied to constant validation. Consistency of trust also influences relationships. People who respond calmly and predictably create emotional safety for others. This safety strengthens trust in relationships. Communication improves because reactions are measured. Conflicts are resolved more constructively. Stability within reflects stability outward. From a psychological perspective, consistent trust reduces stress-related cognitive load. Chronic stress impairs memory, attention, and health. Trust lowers baseline stress by reducing perceived threat. This reduction improves overall functioning and well-being. Consistency also supports long-term goals. Progress toward meaningful objectives often involves delays and obstacles. Inconsistent trust abandons goals prematurely. Consistent trust persists through adjustment. Persistence increases the likelihood of success not through force, but through sustained alignment. Trust as a lifestyle also improves adaptability. When circumstances change unexpectedly, a trusting individual recalibrates rather than resists. This adaptability is essential in complex environments. It allows growth without breakdown. Another critical benefit is self-respect. Keeping inner alignment consistent builds integrity. Individuals trust themselves more because their responses are reliable. This self-trust strengthens external trust as well. Consistent trust also influences perception of meaning. Life events are seen as connected rather than random. This sense of coherence reduces existential anxiety. Meaning provides motivation and endurance. It is important to note that consistency does not mean perfection. Moments of doubt will occur. What matters is returning to trust rather than remaining in fear. Recovery strengthens trust just as much as consistency itself. Consistent trust creates a stable internal environment. This environment supports creativity, learning, and growth. Stability does not restrict movement, it supports it. Ultimately, consistency of trust transforms faith into foundation. It becomes the base upon which decisions, relationships, and goals are built. This foundation does not prevent challenges, but it prevents collapse. Long-term stability is not created by controlling life, but by trusting consistently. When trust is practiced daily, it becomes strength rather than strategy. This strength stabilizes emotion, clarifies thought, and supports resilient action. Through consistency, trust evolves from belief into lived reality, providing balance and order across all areas of life. Everything truly begins within. Trust is not a temporary comfort or a spiritual idea reserved for difficult moments. It is a conscious way of living that shapes perception, behavior, and experience. When trust becomes the foundation of thought, fear loses its authority, and clarity replaces confusion. Life does not suddenly become free of challenges, but challenges are no longer interpreted as threats. They become signals of growth, alignment, and preparation. When inner belief is aligned with faith, resistance dissolves. Control gives way to surrender, impatience to understanding, and anxiety to calm awareness. Through consistent trust, emotional stability develops. Decisions become wiser, and actions align naturally with purpose. What once felt forced begins to flow, not because effort has stopped, but because effort is guided rather than driven by fear. This inner alignment reveals a deeper order at work. Events unfold with better timing. Opportunities appear with greater clarity, and solutions arise without struggle. Trust does not demand certainty. It creates confidence in direction. It allows life to organize itself beyond limited perception. When trust is practiced consistently, it becomes strength rather than hope. It reshapes identity, stabilizes the mind, and opens the way for life to fall into place naturally, not through pressure or control, but through alignment, patience, and unwavering faith in the intelligence that guides all things.